All right, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to combine multiple faces together in Adobe Photoshop. Let's go ahead and get started. Find your photo here. Find the class photos folder in your period. Do me a favor, right-click on that and copy and paste it to your own folder before we get started so that we're all working on our own set of photos. And then find your own photo, or if there is no picture of you because you were gone on the day we took pictures, then you can use somebody else's, but ideally you'll use your own. But go ahead and find that and double-click on that in Bridge, of course. And doing so will open it up in Adobe Photoshop. And here we are. So let's get started. We're actually not going to really do anything with this image right here. We're just going to kind of leave this be. So the next thing I want to do is go back to Bridge. And I'm going to start with the eyes. I want to find out whose eyes do I want to put onto my face. I'm going to try to find somebody who has a similar skin tone to me, just because that makes life a little bit easier. So let's use this young man right here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this one as well to also open that one up in Photoshop. And you can see, like always, these images will open up in tabs here in Photoshop. So we've got two tabs at the top of my screen. Here's the photo of me, and here's the photo of this guy. And we're going to bounce back and forth between these two to try to get his eyes over here onto my face. So to do that, I'm going to switch to my old elliptical marquee tool. That hangs out right here under the rectangular marquee tool. Keyboard shortcut is M, so I'll click on that. I'm going to draw a fairly large selection around his eye. Don't make it really tight. In fact, you want a lot of extra space around him to work with so that you just have options later on. Then I'm going to switch to my move tool. Keyboard shortcut is V on that one, of course. So switch to the move tool, and I'm going to click on this and drag it up and over into that other canvas. To do that, what I have to do is drag it up, up, up. I'm going to stop right here on this tab, and I'm going to hold it here until it switches. And I'm still holding down the mouse button. I have not let go of the mouse. I'm going to come down here, and then once I get here, then I will let go. Let me show you one more time. So draw your selection, switch to the move tool, click and drag it up, hold it here for a second, and drag it back down, never letting go of the mouse until you get here. Okay, easy. Now I want to try to match up my eye with his eye. To do that, it would be easier if I could see through this eye, and I can by lowering the opacity of this layer. That's right here in the Layers panel. I can click on this, and I can lower that down to about 60%, or a much faster keyboard shortcut is just to press 6 on your keyboard. And that will lower that down for you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to zoom in here and try to match these up. His eye looks like it's bigger than mine. It's also possible that he was standing closer to the camera when I took this. So I'm going to Control T or Edit Free Transform to resize this eye and make it just a touch smaller. So let's do that here. I'm going to try to make it about the same size as my eye. And that looks pretty good right there. And I'll go ahead and press Enter. And then I'm going to put this opacity back to 100%. And the easiest way to do that is to just press 0 on your keyboard. Now I will add a layer mask to this layer. And this is where this assignment gets pretty powerful. And the layer mask button is this one right here at the bottom of the Layers panel. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my layer 1. I'm going to go ahead and click on this button to add a layer mask. And you will notice it added this white box with the little white bounding box around it. What I mean by that is there's these 4 little white bars that show us that the layer mask is what is active. You can see if I click here on the actual photo thumbnail, the bounding box is now on this, which tells me this is active. Pretty much for this entire assignment, we want to make sure we always have the layer mask active. So if your layer masking is ever not working the way it's supposed to, almost certainly you need to check this right here. Especially after you've saved and closed your work. Whenever you save and close and then reopen a file, by default Photoshop, the file will open in Photoshop with this selected. So make sure you click and switch over to this and to make sure your layer mask is selected. And of course with the layer mask selected, I can switch to my brush tool. Keyboard shortcut for that is B. And I'm going to use a very, very soft edge, a hardness of 0, and size just depends on the image you're working on. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger using the right bracket key. I'm going to go ahead and start erasing the parts of his face that I don't want and leaving behind the parts of my face that I do want, just like that. Because I'm using such a soft edge brush, I blended his eye into mine. Now, I can see just a tiny bit of my eye poking through right here. So that's actually real easy to fix. What I'm going to do is go back to my brush tool, and I'm going to press the X key on my keyboard, or this button right here on the panel. What that's going to do is that's going to switch my foreground color to white. Remember, If it's black, that's like erasing. That will make things disappear. If I switch to white, again, by pressing X, that will make things reappear. So I'm going to switch to white, and then I'm just going to come and paint with a small brush over the eyeball, making sure I didn't lose any of his eyeball in the process. And there you go. That actually looks pretty good. Let's do the other one real quick. I'll come back here. Selections can be moved. So as long as I'm on the selection tool, I can just click in this one and move it over here. That's very easy. Grab my move tool, drag this over here, drop it right here. Press 6 to lower the opacity. Control T to resize it, because I know I shrunk the other one down. So I'm definitely going to shrink this one down. I might even rotate this one just a little bit. I'm going to shrink this dude down here. That might have been a little too much. Let's try that. I'll press Enter. Press 0 to put my opacity back to 100. Don't forget to add a layer mask. You got to add a layer mask every single time. Grab my brush tool. Alt and right click is the pro tip for changing your brush size like that. And oops, I was painting with white, so that's why nothing happened. So I'm going to press X to switch to black. Go ahead and erase all this extra stuff I don't need. And then I'll switch to white again and just zoom in and just using a smaller brush, make sure that eye is really in there solid. All right, there you go. Just like that, we've done the eyes. Take your time, get this right. If you need to, switch to your move tool and you can come and you can click on the eye. You can move it around. You can always Control T it again to resize it and rotate it and change the orientation of it and things like that. So feel free, take some time on this, you guys. Anybody can just slap this together and make a fairly grotesque looking person. But to make something that really looks good takes a lot of work. Okay, so we are done with this picture right here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And just press that right there. And let's open up a new photograph. All right, I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to try and snatch the mouth off of this guy right here. Like we kind of have similar shaped mouths a little bit. So I'll go ahead and double click on that. Grab my elliptical marquee tool. Again, draw a big old circle. Click on this, drag this over. Drop that in right there. And again, let's lower down the opacity by pressing 6 on the keyboard. Control T, because I know I need to rotate this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And he was definitely closer to the camera than I was for my picture. So we're going to just shrink this mouth down a little bit. That looks about right. Let's try that. I'm going to go and press Enter. Press 0 to put my opacity back to 100. Don't forget to add a layer mask. Brush tool. Make sure my color is set to black. Make sure I'm using a soft edge. I am, and here we go. My face is pretty tricky because of my mustache. You will hopefully have an easier time doing the mouth than I do. Honestly, the trick is, you guys, is choosing the right people to try to blend together. If you try to force things that don't fit or don't match, it's just not going to look good. You can see my bottom lip sticking out there. So I'm going to just bring his mouth down as much as I can before my top lip starts to show. And there I can start to see it there, so I'll bring it back. And then here's a good little trick for you that don't abuse it. I'm going to do Control T. And this time, instead of dragging from the corners to stretch it out evenly, because I don't want to make this mouth any wider, I do want to make it just a touch taller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to drag right here. What that's going to do is just allow me to stretch that mouth out just a little bit. Now let's move it up, and that actually looks like kind of a normal mouth. Press Enter on that, and let's zoom out. And nope, it doesn't look that good at all. But for this example, I think it works. It actually looks fairly decent. So let's be done with the mouth. I'm going to go ahead and close this image right here, and let's go to Bridge, and let's find somebody we can use for the nose. So the nose is tricky because it's the most noticeable part of the face. So you really want to pick somebody who has a similar skin tone than you, as you do. Just it's going to make life a lot easier for you to pick somebody with a similar skin tone. And unfortunately for this example, in looking through these, the one that I think has the most similar skin tone to me is this girl right here. So I'm going to pop this one open by double clicking on it, grab the elliptical marquee tool, draw a circle around her nose, leaving lots of extra space, move tool that over, drop it onto my nose, and it looks like they're going to be about the same size. I don't think I'm going to have to resize it much. So I'm just going to kind of drop it where I think it should be. Again, let's lower down the opacity. Get that into position right about there. Opacity back to 100, add a layer mask, and let's see how this goes. So I'm going to switch back to white here to kind of just add. I erased a little too much painting with black. And I went a little too high there, so let's kind of bring that back down. And I'm just going to zoom in and try to clean this up right in here. Just making sure I paint with the right colors on a real small brush. Oops, wrong color. Come in there and fill in the old mustache right under the nose. There you go. That's a fine-looking man. That's a guy I would want to hang out with right there. All right, if you do all of that, you have done enough to, and you did a good job. You have done enough to get an A on this assignment. However, if you would like some extra credit, you can try and do the hair. So let me show you how I would do that, and then I'll show you how to turn all this in, and we will go from there. And I'm never one to shy away from a challenge in Photoshop, so let's try and add this hair onto my head. It's just fantastic-looking hair anyways. Let's go ahead and throw it in there. I'll double click on this and it's going to open up in Photoshop and just draw a selection that includes all the hair. And just like before, we'll click and drag this over, drop that onto my face. And again, his head's quite a bit closer than mine. So we're going to need to shrink this down, but let's do that later. So I'm going to start by just adding a layer mask and grabbing my brush. And again, with a nice soft edge, I'm just going to erase the edge of this circle first of all. I'm going to come in and just kind of eyeball it and just erase some of this hair on some of his face on the inside of his hair here. And there you go, right off the bat, not looking too bad. Let's move this over. And that looks great. But we don't want it sticking out like that, right? So we got to fix that. So let's Control-T this, and let's kind of start just making it smaller until it kind of comes up against the side of my head. Now, again, it's sticking out way too far over here, so this is where we're going to have to cheat again a little bit. We're going to hold down Shift and drag this corner in, and then doing that, push that corner out. So we'll drag that corner in, and we'll just kind of keep doing this, holding down Shift, and then maybe I'll bring that down just as much, a little bit. And there you go. That's a good-looking head of hair right there on my head. I like that. I like the looks of that a lot. So you can see doing hair is not incredibly difficult, but certainly is a challenge. So we're pretty much done here, so let me show you how we're going to finish this up. I mentioned in class that we were going to do it a little bit differently, and here's what's going to be different. What I want you to do is here along the bottom of the screen is I want to see all of the people you sampled from. So, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to this photo. I'm going to get rid of this selection by pressing Control-D on my keyboard, and I'm just going to use the Move tool, and I'm going to click and drag this image over, the entire image into here. And it's obviously way too big, so I'm going to Control-T, and I'm going to just shrink it way down. And I want to just put it down here at the bottom. And I need room for all four since I use 4 people, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And then press Enter. And then I'll come over here to this girl, Control-D to get rid of the selection. I'll move her over. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I have all 4 of my people along the bottom of my canvas so that I can see exactly who you sampled. I'm going to try to make it look good, so I'll try to make them all be around the same size just because I think that looks good. Press Enter there, and then I'm just going to keep doing that until I've added all 4 photos. All right, I got all 4 photos along the bottom. Now, of course, I'm just going to do a little file save. I'm obviously going to save this as a PSD file, first of all, so that I can save all of my layers just in case I need to come back and do some work and make some edits. That would be the file I would open to do that. But I can't upload PSD files to Flickr, so now I'm going to do File Save As. And here in that same folder, in my Class Photos folder, I'm going to change this to a JPEG. And I will, let's give this a new name, Finished Combination Project. Press Save. And that JPEG file is the one you'll turn into Flickr. And if this pops up, you'll press OK, and you are done.